Hello friends, welcome to UiPath Expo Hub. Today in this example, we are going to learn the business rule exception in RE framework and we will get a live example. For this, I am taking a task. The task is that in a website where you have to upload the data, okay, the website does not perform any data validation. So as you know, business rule exception is nothing but a data validation, right? During the processing stage, we do a data validation. If the data is wrong, then it should throw a business rule exception, or I will call it as BRE. Okay, so how do you get that done is something we are going to see it. And most of the YouTube videos may not give you a live example. That is where you may not learn the business rule exception in detail. So in this demo, I am going to cover that in complete detail, and do not skip the video if you are not an expert, because small to small key points I am going to mention, you will miss that. Okay, so please continue to the video and you will learn the business rule exception in complete detail, that I can guarantee. All right, so let's get started. So the very first thing that you will be doing is, you create a RE framework. So you already know that, I guess. So you click on home and then click on start and click on robotic enterprise framework. Okay, and give a name. And once you do that, you come up to this RE framework. All right, now what I have to do is, the job for me is, there is a website. So you must know about this website. For all kind of UiPath practice, you have to be aware of this website. So the website is rpachallenge.com. Just type it in Google, you will get it. Okay, so in this website, I have got an Excel file which has got the first name, last name, company name, role in company, email address, phone number, and all of this. So this data I supposed to upload into the website. Okay, so once I upload all of the data, so there are 7 different records. So once I upload all the each of this element, I need to click on submit. Okay, so once you submit, it will go to a next form. So what is happening, the form is changing dynamically. Okay, so how do you enter a dynamic data is also something you will get to see in this video. Okay, and for that I have the data. So there are 5 different records that I have got. So all of this record I need to upload. Now I was concentrating on data validation. So what is that data validation? So if you see one of my record, so if you see this, your phone number is supposed to have 10 digits, isn't it? Your phone number is supposed to have 10 digits. So if I, by mistake, it may happen, someone might enter a phone number, let's say 9 digit, or it's a mistype or any kind of thing. So if there is a 9 digit, you should not upload the data to a website, right? Because that's a wrong data. So you have to implement BRE or business rule exception there. So how to do that, we will see. Okay, so you understood the task pretty well. This is the exact data I supposed to upload onto this website. Okay, with the data validation. Okay, so the very first thing what I will do, before you implement RE framework, your data is supposed to be there in the queue. Okay, so for that I will go to platform.uipath.com. okay, and then click on queue. So there is a complete video on orchestrator. You can see that in my channel. Okay, so I'm guessing you know about queue. So you come to queue and click on plus sign. Okay, here I'm going to give a name. So what name would, so it's a data validation, right? So I will say data validate or business rule exception, BRE demo queue. Okay, so this is the name I have given, BRE demo queue. Now with this name, so there is something called auto retract is equal to 1. Okay, so you know this, then click on add. So my queue is generated. Okay, there's no data now. Now what you're supposed to do, I will tell you one of the mistake that people might do. So what is the mistake? The mistake is you try to upload the data, to queue. So simple. Okay, this is a mistake. Normally we do it in the init, right? So for demo purpose, for initial classes, yeah, that is fine to understand. But when you are an expert, when you are going to become an expert, if you are uploading your data in init, there is a problem. What is the problem? I will show you. So if you go back to your RE framework, you see when there is a system exception, right? Highlight system exception. So when you click on system exception, so it points to init. Okay, so that means when you are initializing your data, if you are adding something to the queue in the initial state, what would happen? The data will become duplicate. If there is a system exception error, again if you are writing a add queue over here, it is going to duplicate entire data. So you are not supposed to write a add queue item activity inside initialization step. So this cannot be done. Okay, remember that. So couple of my previous video I have done that, but again, as you are becoming expert, you must know the uploading of data should not be done in the init state, because when there is a application error, what would happen? Again it will try to upload the data and your data will become duplicate in the queue, isn't it? Okay, now to avoid that, what I'm going to do, you will create a kind of a dispatcher kind of a workflow which will dispatch the data. So what I will do, the first thing I will do is create a queue. Okay, so create a new sequence and I will say upload data to queue. Okay, so this is a workflow I'm going to create. All right, now so this is your data. So you want to read this data, right, from the Excel to upload. So the first thing you're supposed to do is use an Excel application scope. Now point to the work file where it is available. Copy this data. Okay, and within double quotes paste it. Understood why I'm creating a different sequence? That logic is supposed to be very clear. Now the other one is I have to read the data. So I have to specify which data I want to read. So I'm doing a read range activity and here I'll give the name. So simply click on rename, copy the data. Instead of sheet 1, mention that particular sheet data. Okay, and I want to read the entire range. So here I will give a data table output. So as you are reading, so I will say read data table, something like that you can give. Okay, now this is created. Now once you read it, I want to upload the data one by one or row by row, right? The correct word is row by row. So for that I will use for each row. Drag and drop this. Simple. Here mention the data table just you created. And then once it reads the data one by one, what I want the data to get uploaded to the queue. All right. For that you have something called add queue item. Use this activity, drag and drop. And here on the right hand side you have to mention queue name. So here is the queue name, right? So what queue we have created, the same queue name, just copy, do a copy paste, guys, do not type it, because generally I do mistake while typing. So best to put a double quote, and within that give the name. Done. So you have given the queue name. So once you have given the queue name, what data would you like to enter? So I want all my data, isn't it? So what I will do for that, I'll create the arguments. So what is that? The first data is first name. If you see, the first data is first name. So I will simply say first name, and the value will be, so this is the way to write row. And then in the Excel file, what the exact way you have written, right, just copy that. So you are inside the for each loop, right? So row has the value, so mention that exactly dot to string. Okay, so that way this data will be captured, and it will be added to the queue. Which queue? Here you have mentioned the name, BRE demo queue. Okay, so it is going to get uploaded through this activity. Similar way, you just have to repeat for all of this. So let me do it. So guys, I have repeated the same step for all of the 7 different columns. Okay, as per the Excel file, I just repeated the same thing. Only thing you need to ensure, whatever you are typed here, there is a space and all that. So copy paste the data to your formula. Okay, so I have written all of this. So once it is done, click on OK. So now one by one all the items should get uploaded. So before you proceed to the next step, it is a good practice to implement and see, run it and see if the data is getting uploaded properly or not. Okay, so let me run it now and I will upload the data, then we will go to RE framework. Let me run it. Okay, so the execution is completed. So let me open my queue and see if the data got uploaded. Okay, so you can see 1 2 3 4 5, all the 5 data has been uploaded. Now we will go to the RE framework. Okay, now inside the RE framework, open the first state. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to upload the data to the website. So simple thing I have to do is go to invoke, click on open workflow, and here in the opening application below this, okay, this come under init all application workflow. In this, all I have to do is I have to open a browser. That's all, right? Open browser. So this is what I want to initiate. Simple. So here, let me copy the URL and paste it. Okay, that's all I need to do now. Okay, now the other thing you will see when you launch the website, right? The first thing you will see for the first time when you launch it, there is something called start, isn't it? It has to, when it loads, reloads, then you will find a start button. So you have to click on start. The same thing you need to write it in your UiPath. For that, all I will do, I'll use a click activity. Simple. Mouse click, and here indicate element inside the browser, and I'm going to indicate this element. Okay, so that's all you need to do in the init state. Done. So you have clicked. Okay, now save it, come out of this. Okay, now this is done. Now after this, the next thing you have to do is, if you go to get transaction data, you don't have to literally do anything in this particular state. Reason being, it is just going to download the data. Okay, whatever the queue you have mentioned, it need to download the data. But before that, you need to understand, you have not mentioned the queue name. So the next step for you would be, go to the project. So this is our project. Inside that you have called something called data. Open the config file. Once the config file is open, all you have to do is just mention the queue name. So copy paste from your platform.uipath.com. Okay, so the queue name has been mentioned. Save it and close it. Do not keep the config file open, or else you will have problem while running it. Okay, so close this. Done. So with that, your get transaction state, you are done. Nothing you have to do. Okay, so get transaction state, all of this I have explained in my previous videos in detail, each activity in detail. Please watch that video. Okay, now once that is done, get transaction data is done, the next state is your process transaction, isn't it? So open process transaction. Now here, what I have to process, I have to take each data and upload into that website. So for that, you have to go to invoke process workflow, open this. Now the first activity you have to use, because it's a browser, use a attach window, attach browser activity. Okay, open, keep that. You can delete this, this is not required. So here you need to indicate browser on screen, keep that in the background, come back to UiPath, indicate on screen. Okay, so the browser is indicated now. Now first thing is I have to write something, right? So what I will do, because your values are changing, remember that it is not at the same place all the time. For that you have to use an anchor based activity. Again, for this also I have a complete video, still you can learn in this video. Now in the anchor base, what I have to do, I have to use a find element activity. Okay, find element. Now let's do a test. Do not build your entire workflow and then do a test. Do test in between. Okay, so now I have indicated I need to indicate the element. So let me first enter the first name. Okay, this is my anchor, and your anchor is always on the top. So change, click on anchor base, and here anchor position, change it to top. Done. So you have selected the anchor. The next thing you want to do is type into, right? You have to type. So click on type into, and when you use type into, the best practice is on the right hand side you have something called empty field. Just click on this. Okay, whatever data, in case there is a data, it will remove and rewrite the data. Okay, now once that is done, click on indicate element, and this is the place where it's supposed to write the data. So highlight that. Done. Now for you to fetch the data from the queue, which is done in the get transaction state, and this is the variable which will have the data. Okay, that remain common in the RE framework. In underscore transaction item will have the data. Here click on dot and click on specific content. Okay, now here in the specific content, what you do inside this, you need to mention the exact way in the queue it is mentioned. For that, go to the queue, click on view transactions, simple, and here open one of the record, any one, and click on view details. Here you see the way you have written, the same way you have to copy it. Go back to UiPath, and here inside here you have to mention that in double quotes. Okay, done. So this is how you need to write. Let me open in a bigger window. Because it's a text, you have to say dot to string. Clear? In transaction item is your argument which contains the queue items one by one, specific content, and the first name I want to fetch. So for this also I have created a complete video for you to understand. So please watch the previous videos. So done. So now I have got the first name. I want to, so this will go and enter into that browser. Okay, it will enter that into the browser. So now once it enters, the next data I want to enter is my phone number, isn't it? So before I run the phone number, because there is a data validation I have to do, right? So before that, I would expect you to run it once and see if the data entry is happening properly or not. So all you have to do is save what you have created, go to the main, and from the main you need to run it. So let me run it and see if there is any error. We will correct that error first. Okay, it's going to open the browser now. So let's wait and see. So you can see it has opened the browser. That is what we have mentioned in the init state. Remember, okay? So it is in the init state. Okay, so the browser is taking some time. So this will wait for about 30 seconds by default. So now the browser is up. Now it will go to get transaction, download the first data from the queue, and it is entering the name. Do you see that? So right until now we are good at entering the data. So now we are not yet done, isn't it? So for that, what you do, go back to your UiPath. Okay, stop this. So it's entering the data, we understood. So again, go back to process transaction state. It's easy, guys. So all you need to know where to click and what to do. So now again, go back to invoke process workflow. Here the next thing is phone number. So phone number, I have to enter the data validation or business rule exception, isn't it? So for that, what I will do here, I'll simply take a if activity and drop it below this. Okay, you're supposed to be inside the attached browser. Okay, so I am inside the attached browser. Okay, so once you have the if activity, what I want the phone number to be validated. Okay, now to validate the phone number, you need to do the dot length method. So let's see that. So for that, what I will do, I'll create a simple argument called phone number, a simple variable called phone number. Okay, it's a string type, let it be string type. Done. Now it is the scope is do, so within this activity only I want, so that is fine. Now go to here and use a small assign activity. I'll tell you why are we doing all this. Assign activity. Here what I'm doing, I will simply say phone number. So that's my variable I've created, string variable. And here what I'm going to do, I'm going to fetch the phone number in underscore transaction item that is coming from the queue, right? dot specific content. I want the specific content is the phone number, right? Specific content, and inside double quotes you again go back to the queue and check the exact way it has been written. So in phone it has written, right? So copy this and mention it over here. So that way it will fetch the phone number dot to string. So let it be to string, that is, it is a number but doesn't matter. So it will do the it will achieve what we want. So now it has to do a validation. So now what you do here in the condition, simply say phone number is your variable which contains the phone number, dot length is the method. Okay, dot length is less than 10. If it is less than 10, then there is an error, isn't it? So that is our condition. So less than 10 you have to write. So now if it is less than 10, what you do, the first thing you have to do is you have to use the set transaction status. So in your queue, when it processes that data, it has to say there is a business rule exception that has happened, isn't it? For that you will be using this activity which is coming from the orchestrator queue. Okay, set transaction status, drag and drop this. On the right hand side, all you have to do is transaction item, you know where it contains in underscore transaction item. Okay, for that particular transaction item, and this has failed, isn't it? This has failed. Okay, now here you have to give a reason. So you can draft your own reason. So what I'm going to say, invalid phone number. You can draft your own message. So done. So I have mentioned the status queue. Now what I wanted to remember this. One concept should be very clear. So when you are working on a website, okay, now if you enter any number, let's say phone number, if I enter even whatever I'm entering, it's taking it, right? So there is no validation happening. So if you say ABCD1 to whatever you are typing and you know how many length you type, it is not doing a validation. It's just taking the data. Because of this, in your RE framework, it is not going to capture this as an exception. Okay, if you go to your main, if you see if there is a business rule exception, if there is a data validation problem, what it does, it will simply go and pull the next data, right? It will simply pull the next data, and it will notify the user that there is some kind of an error. But this is not going to happen in this case, because there is no validation error thrown from the website. Do you see? Otherwise, most of the website it will let you know there is a data in invalid data. There will be some pop-up would come. So that kind of pop-up is not coming. So in this case, your RE framework will not function. It will not take it as a successful, or it will simply process it. Okay. Now to get that, this is the logic you have to apply, which I am going to let you know. Okay, so first thing is you have set transaction status. You do it. Okay, you without this logic, if you simply run it, even though a wrong data will be accepted, so you have to implement this logic. So once this is done, what you have to do, you have to use another activity called throw. Okay, throw. So what this will do, because there is no exception coming from the website, we have to throw an exception. That is the meaning. We have to throw an exception. So how do you throw an exception? It's very simple. Here in the exception, all you have to do is write new, and this is a business rule exception, right? New business rule exception, and here in double quotes I will throw invalid phone number. So this is the error that you should throw. Getting it? So now your exception will have some value called invalid phone number. If you don't use this activity, you will see you will not be able to implement the business rule exception when your portal is not capable of validating the data. Remember this key point. Okay, when your portal is not able to validate the data, you have to implement an activity inside the RE framework. So this is the example. Set transaction status is going to set a business rule exception. So when it does it, what happens in your queue, before it processes the data, it will show there is an exception here. Okay, I'm going to show the demo to you just in few minutes, and then throw is going to have a value called whatever value I'm mentioning. The business rule exception will have a value called invalid phone number. Okay, so once it processes the data, so what happens if you go back, Okay, so inside this process transaction, this is the place where your data will be processed. So this is the workflow we are currently working upon, right? So the same workflow we are working. Okay, so once it processes, if there is an error, if the phone number is less than 10 digits, if the length of the phone number is less than 10 digit, what will happen will come, if there is an exception, it will try to come to catch section. So in the catch, what is happening? If the exception is thrown from the portal, it will captured in the exception. Okay, that is where your value, the business exception variable, will have some value. If it is not thrown from the portal, this will not have any value. Okay, so when it doesn't have any value, it will not go through that business rule exception block. So for us to send out a value, we have to throw the exception. We have to create that exception depending on the condition we have mentioned in the just before this, right? So that way the exception will have a new value called invalid phone number, and that invalid phone number will come to this business exception. Okay, so after this it will go to the finally section. Now in the finally section, what would happen? It will execute this particular workflow. So let's open this open workflow. Now in the open workflow, you must understand this. Here when it comes, if it clicks on success, right, click on success, and there's a condition. Okay, what is the condition? In business exception is nothing and system exception is nothing. So if it is nothing, what would happen? It is going to run the success block and tell you the transaction is successful, which is wrong, right? We have an exception. The phone number is wrong. So there has to be exception. So what we do, we pass a value to business exception variable, as I said, by activity called throw. So throw activity is very important for you to understand. Okay. So now, as you know about the throw activity, now what would happen? The business exception will have some kind of a value. And after this, when this has a value called invalid phone number, this will come to this root. And here again, there's a condition in business is not nothing. So there is something, right? Then it will come to this block. Now here in the business exception, the entire flow will run. Okay. So here, what is the flow? In underscore transaction item is not nothing. That means there is a transaction item and it is a queue item. So this I have explained, but again, this is the meaning is this is a queue item and there is a transaction data inside it. Okay, why is it okay? So you can see that, right? Entire thing. All right, so now after that, it is going to set a transaction business called in underscore business exception in the queue. That means what we have mentioned, invalid phone number, right? The same thing will again carry forward to the queue. So and then here what is happening, here it will say fail. So this activity is again not required. Reason being, we are already setting the transaction value in the previous, but if you keep it also, there is no worry, it will just override that data and the status will change as failed. Okay, if you want to delete also, you can experiment, you can delete that and it will work, because anyways we are using this activity over there. Okay, logically correct. Now below that log business exception, it is going to log whatever the error is, and then and below that, this is remove transaction log is not required. Okay, so this is what is going to happen inside the business exception book. After that, it will, so business exception means what? When there is an error, it cannot retry. You cannot retry that because there is already error. Why? What you want to do with retry? The phone number is invalid, right? So you have to inform a human user, isn't it? You have to inform some human, or there is an email supposed to go, or something supposed to happen. So that is all the business rule exception is all about, so that next time the user will go there and he understands there was something wrong and he can rectify the data. Okay, that is all about business rule exception. Okay, so you have to inform that there is a business rule exception. So if you have to inform, not all the time you have to inform, certain time you have, that has to be like that, but in this case we have to inform somebody, right? So to inform the human user, what we will do, we will go back to the process state. Okay, so here in the process state, what I'm going to do, as it is validating the data, here I will use a message box here or anywhere you want. Okay, in the anywhere you like, you can just show that. So I'll use a message box. Clear? Here in the message box, what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply say in underscore transaction item dot specific content. You can hit on tab, and then here I want to say for whom it has happened. Okay, so for that, what I will do, again go to the queue. Let's open one of the record or one of the transaction, you should say, and here let's say for Rahul it has happened. Let's say for example, whoever is going to happen is going to show that name. Okay, so it will say Rahul. If you want to give a plus sign and give the last name also, that's fine, you can do that, but I'll just avoid for the moment to save time. So what I'm going to do here, it will say Rahul Kumar, and I'll give a small space, and then I'll simply say invalid phone number in the input sheet. Okay, something like that, invalid phone number, and then so it will show me that particular data. So here you have to put a dot to string. Okay, remember that, dot to string. Done. So this is all done. So right now I want to see, as I know for my record input sheet, knowingly I have made this data wrong for Amit. Okay, for Amit it should not enter that data. Okay, so once it enters the data, what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to submit, isn't it? So ensure you writing that activity too. Do not simply test it. So click on, use the click activity, and below this ensure you are inside the attached browser. Okay, all right. So now here indicate, and then where should click, it should click on submit, right? So indicate and hit on submit. Done. Okay, so now if it is wrong, then it should do that. If it is right, so that you have not written, isn't it? If it is right, what you have to do, it has to again use an anchor base activity. So anchor base is very important. Okay, otherwise because it's very dynamic, and your anchor is always on the top, right? So say as top, and here in the anchor click on find element, drag and drop it, and indicate element. What is that element? Phone number. Okay, phone number. Okay, and here it has to type into, right? Next, type into, and as I said, the best practice while using type into, click on empty field wherever required, then indicate, and here is the phone number field. Done. And here again the same thing you have to do, in underscore transaction item dot specific content, and within brackets and double quote you have to simply mention the exact variable which contains the data, or argument that contains the data. So here I am going to simply paste it and write a dot to string. Okay, so this we are done. Clear? So now you can see it will click, it is going to enter the phone number. If it is correct, it's going to enter the phone number. If it is incorrect, it is going to show a business rule exception error, and it's supposed to upload that to the queue also. It has to write in the queue. Here it should say business rule exception, right? So all of this, let's run it and see it now. So as you have already executed the queue once, so what you do, upload the data once again. Okay, so let me first run the upload data queue and upload the data to the queue. So let me go back to the queue. So I've made the queue blank. Now let it upload the 5 data. Now let's refresh the queue and go to, sometimes the numbers won't appear, so all you do is click on view transactions and you should see the, okay, so I have got all the 5 new data. So let's run it, and the third data, which is Amit, which has a wrong value. Okay, so we can notice that while it is running. So Amit has got only 9 digits, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. It's not 10 digit number. Okay, Amit from Pune. Okay, so let's see that. So let's so the queue is uploaded with the data, and it should process our data. So what we will do, go back to UiPath, save everything, go to main, and let's run it. Okay, so it has opened the browser. Now I should enter my first data, Deepak, and the phone number. Very good. And the second data, Ramesh. Okay, and the phone number. Submit. Okay. Now the third data. This is Amit. Okay. So Amit phone, name has been written. The phone number will not be entered because we have set a validation. See, it's not entering the phone number. Correct. Okay, now all you do the moment it stops, that means there's a business rule exception that happened. As I said, when your project is not published, you are inside the development studio, right? UiPath studio. All you have to do is you have to manually click on F6, but once your project is published in the orchestrator, you don't have to do all this. It will run automatically. Okay, so for this what I will do, hit on F6. So remember that F6, F6, simply do F6 until it's a transaction completed. So you can see it is logging the so transaction ended, transaction started. So it will, you will see it is entering the next data, John and his number. Submit. You understanding? And then it will enter the last data, or John was the last data. Okay, Rahul. Okay, so Rahul was the last data, so it has completed its job. So all the transaction is processed apart from one data, right? So you can see the output. This is complete. Now our main focus was, is it logging properly or not? So what you do, refresh your queue. Okay, wonderful. So you can see here it has failed, isn't it? It has failed, and here it's saying there is a business rule exception. Okay, there's a business rule exception, and let's see that. Click on view details, and here you can see invalid phone number has been well registered. So with this we learned how to get the business rule exception implemented. Okay, so there is a business rule exception and this particular record has not been uploaded. Now you want to see, all you have to do is you have to download this Excel file. So once you download the data, you can see the status has been failed. There is a business exception which has occurred. Okay, and there is a invalid phone number. Okay, as I have shown you the business exception, let me also show you the exception for application. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is let me correct this number. Okay, so I'll put a 9. So I got a business exception. I know where it is wrong, so I've corrected the number. Now let's look at the application exception. Okay, so application exception, when it will occur, when your application freezes, right? I have covered that topic, but I'll give a small demo. So when your application freezes and there is an exception, it will be caught by the UiPath. So you don't have to use a throw activity. It will be caught by the UiPath reframework. So in the finally section you have seen. So once it is caught, this has to reinitiate your data, isn't it? It has to reinitiate and again open the browser. It will close that browser. It will reopen the browser, and all of this is supposed to happen. So guys, we have seen the BRE. Now I am going to show you the application exception error. And there's a demo. Okay, just 2 minutes. Okay, so application exception demo. For this, what I'm going to do, like, let me again upload the data to the queue. I have cleared it manually. So let me upload the data. So let's refresh the queue, and I should have my data inside this. Okay, so all the 5 data is there. Now let's get a demo on application exception. Okay, so for that, again go to your main, save everything and go to your main, and from the main let me run it. So how do you create an application exception? Application exception will come when your application freezes or there is some kind of an error coming from the application while it is processing the data. Okay, it's slow, it's not responding, element not found, UI element has moved from right to left, or something has happened. Okay, where your it is not able to detect it. So that is where this will happen. Okay, so let's see, it's opening the application. It will open the browser. Okay, rpachallenge.com has opened. Okay, so now it will enter the first data. So first data was Deepak, right? Deepak, I believe, yes. Okay, Deepak, and it'll enter the phone number and then hit on submit. Doing. Now next data is, I don't recall. Okay, let's wait. Okay, Ramesh, and it's entering the phone number. So exactly the third data, what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this. Okay, so what will happen while it is processing the third data, it will not find the browser. The application itself is closed, so it will not be able to process the data. So it has to start the initial state. Okay, because there is a system exception, the application is frozen or it's not found. So again it will go to initial state and it will try to open the browser. So you understood why we should not have a add queue there. Okay, you should not upload the data in the initial state. Okay, so when this exception is coming, because it's not able to find that browser. So here, as I said, in UiPath, as you are inside the UiPath studio, you are developing, it is showing you the error. But once you publish it in the orchestrator, once the project is published, this kind of error will not come, it will continue. So now as you are in studio, you are developing it, you just manually have to do it. Hit on F6 or continue. So you can click here or you can click on F6. So just skip through these errors. The 3-4 times it is coming. After that it will automatically process. Okay, until transaction ended you have to skip it. So you can see it has reopened the browser for me. So the data third was Amit. So now Amit will not be entered. The next data John will be entered. Okay, you can see the Amit third data was Amit, right? Where the now the data that won't be entered. Okay, and the last data was Rahul. Okay, now after this it will retry to enter Amit. Now you should see Amit. Do you see Amit? Now the phone number is corrected, so it does enter. So that way all your data has been entered perfectly. What you do, go back to your queue, refresh your queue, and you will find this particular data has been retried. So retried meaning it will create another transaction item. Okay, and that will be processed once all the previous transaction is completed. So this has been processed here. So if you open this particular record which says application exception, if you click on view details, you will see there is an application exception. Cannot find UI element corresponding to selector. Okay, that was the error been notified here. And then the same record, if you see the record was what? Amit, right? Amit. So the Amit Kohli, for that the orchestrator will automatically create a new item once again without you uploading. It will automatically create when there is a retried option is selected. Then you click on view details and it will see Amit Kohli has been retried. Okay, and this time it is successful. Understood? So this is the proper example of business rule application, business rule exception, and the application exception. Okay, how to implement that into a portal we have learned. Thank you guys for all your support. Thanks for all your comments. Please do comment. That helps the channel to grow. That helps to promote the videos that we are spending time on to create. Please do comment whatever you feel good, bad about the video. If you have some kind of a feedback, please do provide in your comment section. That way it motivates a lot by reading them, and I'm very I'm very much active to reply to your questions which comes as a comment. So please do comment. I might miss one or two here and there, but again I generally do not miss it. I do reply. Thank you for all your support once again, friends. Thank you very much. Please spread this and help our channel to grow. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. We'll come up with more interesting videos.